Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being patient and waiting and joining us on our first events, Biashara Forum. Shangwe na vigelegele sound effects will be put there when we're doing the editing. But for now, thank you so much for joining us. And our first panelists here, we're going to be having the team from TWESA. So you guys have been joining our WhatsApp group. You've been reading TWESA Nation and you're wondering who are the people behind and what is TWESA. So I'll start the brief introduction and say that TWESA actually means the Wedding and Events Summit Africa. And I'll have our other members of TWESA also just tell us a bit more about it and why TWESA. So maybe I can start with you, Diana, as a vision bearer. What made, after being in the events industry for so long and being in so many other associations, why TWESA?
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. So the reason why we decided to come together as TWESA is because for a long time we have needs and ambitions as an industry, and we've had a lot of groups coming in together, but we need to be able to have a very integrated vision of what it is that we want to achieve. And many a times I think that is what is lost in many of the groups that we are in. So this particular group, or rather this particular organization, is to bring people together so that we are able to collaborate for the bigger vision. And the bigger vision is to be able to bring value to the industry, number one. Number two, to be able to look at the needs of the industry and find solutions to these needs. And number three is we all have ambitions, being able to meet those ambitions by bringing in partners, strategic partners who are able to help us, be able to bring more value and improve the industry. So that is why we decided to come together and do this.
You've brought out some very interesting points, but I'd like to now throw it to you, Mr. Joe, and ask, we've had the same thing over and over again. We've had associations which have come up. Legally speaking, as an events person, what should make me feel this is my home?
I think how to answer it is maybe I'll differentiate between us and the other associations which have been there or have been created before. And with this one, we are industry players. The people who are here are industry players, number one. So we identify with the vendors out there. So we are players, we are not outsiders. We understand the dynamics of this space. And there's a wealth of experience sitting here. So we understand the problems that have been hitting us, where the rains have been hitting us over the years. And we are ready to get into it, to find out what are these emerging issues that vendors are now encountering in the industry. But beyond that, like Diana has indicated, we want to come up with partners and bring people on board who will help vendors secure, for example, their tenders that are advertised by government and institutions. And if I go myself, for example, as MC Wakili, I may not have the resources. Maybe I need a financier who would come and give me some boost. And that is what TWESA is coming to do. We are partnering with the right people to enable our members to access some of those services that initially were beyond their reach. And then you are bringing together a pool of like-minded partners in an uncompetitive space where everyone is equal. We are all minded in alleviating our lives as event players. So we are bringing you the right partnerships. We are bringing you the right people to partner with to secure such kind of work in an uncompetitive, and even if it's competitive, it's healthy competition where you feel safe that I am working with Diana. Diana is not my competitor, we are peers, and we are working towards the same goal. Because in this industry, sorry to speak, most often we find people pull each other down. I become envious of what she's doing, but there's enough cake for everyone. And you need to feel comfortable partnering with Michelle or with whoever is out there. So we are offering a fair space for all of us as industry players to find our niche and to share this cake that is so big and enough for all of us. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joe. Yes, the cake is definitely big and can fit all of us if we just collaborate. I'd like to ask you a question, Michelle. Joe has talked a lot about partnerships and the need to work as industry players. What are some of the things that are coming up in TWESA in terms of partnerships that would be of interest to everyone?
All right, thank you, Joy. That's a very good question. So what we're doing is we're identifying opportunities from various stakeholders like the government, the corporates, and this will in turn help those upcoming players who might want to join but they don't know where to start. Something big that we're trying to do also as TWESA is also create a platform for knowledge for people to learn, because a lot of people get into the industry because they may have seen someone doing something here and there, but they don't have the knowledge. For example, they don't know how to handle customers properly, or how to upsell, or how to create an invoice. So we're trying to do a lot in terms of standardization, how to improve skills. That's why such firms are coming up, because we want people to have knowledge, people to be empowered. There's a lot of guys who just come in and they don't know where to start. So we'd like to give them the opportunity to tell them, let's hold your hand and let's move on together. And that's something that is very fundamental for this group.
All right. So last question to all panelists. If you could collaborate with a Kenyan sports champion to create an event, who would it be and why?
I think I can start. I think I would probably collaborate with Omanyala. I think he has a very positive attitude, and I like his positive attitude towards life, and I like the fact that he doesn't let anything put him down. So that would be my first guy.
For me, I think I'll go with Eliud. No human is limited. So I think that the fact that he broke the barrier that humans had placed on themselves, I think for me, I'd go with him because he'll give me the extra motivation that anything is possible if you believe. Yeah.
So they've mentioned all the sportsmen I know. So perhaps I'll pick a team. I'll go with Gor Mahia. Because I like the zeal, the enthusiasm. So I think a team will do.
All right. Just as a parting shot, before we take a 5-minute break and move into our next panelist, maybe you can just give one word or a closing remark and encourage all those who are watching, why should they join TWESA?
Okay. For me, I'd tell everyone to join TWESA because there's so much we have for you. There's so much. We have a lot of incentives that we have for you in store. We have learning platforms, and as my team has echoed, other than the learning platforms and the incentives, we also have very strategic partnerships that we believe will level up any business. Thank you.
For me, I think TWESA is family. And all of us here, we come from families. You need a mom, you need a dad, you need siblings. We want TWESA to be that for you in the events space. You want family? Come, because your family will always have your back. That's what we want to offer industry players.
I would say join TWESA because it's an opportunity for growth. not just within Nairobi, but also the whole country. And we have a vision to also actually connect all Africans. And this is something that if you join us, you're just going to have a good time. So join the group, join TWESA.
Well, thank you guys for watching this first part. Stay tuned. We're continuing with the second panel. And thank you all, as you guys have heard, join TWESA. Join TWESA. And TWESA stands for the Wedding and Event Summit Africa. Give 5 minutes, we'll be back. Apologies. Okay, so my name is Joyce Njoki, the founder of Boundless Creations, a paper flower company here in Kenya. And today I have the honor of sitting and asking questions to seasoned professionals in the events industry. And I'm hoping in the next 1 hour, we're all going to learn on how we are going to grow our businesses and learn from these guys how to grow thriving events businesses in Kenya and in the industry. So please remember to ask your questions on the chat section, and you can also send on the WhatsApp on TWESA Nation, where we can collect your questions and we'll answer them at the end of the discussion. So I'll introduce our panelists. So I'll start from, hey, wait, this is my right, so left. I'll start from the farthest left, Mr. Jimton Okeyo. He is the brains behind Harvista Limited, a catering company here in Kenya that started in 2003, guys. This guy has 20 years experience in the events industry. If you're not captured to hear what he has to say, I mean, stay tuned. And next to him, we have Mr. Jackson Mwangi, who is a serial entrepreneur in the events space. He runs Cine Studios, he runs Jackson Mwangi Photography, and 360-degree photo booth Kenya. That is how to grow, guys. And on my immediate left, we have Mr. Bosire Bitange. He is the business administrative manager at Expose Limited. And one thing that's interesting about Mr. Mark that I found out is that he's also the co-founder of Event Connect, and he's been passionate for so many years to connect people in the space and to help them in growing their businesses over the last few years, right? Okay. So I'd like to start with you, Mr. Jimton. Again, 20 years is no joke in being in the industry space. So in the catering terms, I'd like to ask you this question. If events were a recipe, what would you say are the key ingredients in having a successful one?
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Joyce, for the opportunity to be here and to be able to talk to our audience. I think one of the things that I would say is one of the things that I would say would be of great importance for that matter would be the issue of flexibility as an ingredient. That's one of the things that I've applied over the years as I have built my business. Just being flexible and changing along the way, because we have a diversity of what clients need, you know. Being in Africa, you know, sometimes we've been used to cooking African cuisine, but sometimes you find a variety of other clients who are coming and asking for other cuisines. You know, nowadays you have the Chinese, you have the Indian, you know, you have all manner of other recipes that sometimes we play, and even more traditional than we were doing before. Some things that we never did in the past that now we are doing. You know, you have people who can ask you for very kind of a traditional meal that we would not ordinarily do in the past. So one thing I would say is being able to be flexible so that we are not like just in one phase. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I think every events person can relate to the need to be adaptable on site and to just be able to accommodate everything that is happening in that location. So I'd like to move the next question and ask Mr. Jackson, if you could provide us some insights in how to handle these diverse clients that Jimton is talking about, that you've come on site, you're finding the need to be flexible because the clientele is different. So how do you adapt to the different clientele that is available in the industry?
All right, thank you so much for having me in this panel. What a pleasure again still to connect with our friends and even our clients online. The one thing that is really, really important, personally I can say, is to listen to the client. One of the biggest challenges we have as service providers is the advantage of experience, which most of the time, or probably some of the time, it works against us. You know, every client has their own preference. This is what they want. This is what they've really wanted to have in their wedding. This is their dream. But then us, sometimes we have this thing of trying to push to the client what we feel is good for them. Yet they're the ones who know what they really want. So one of the things which I would really say it's extremely important is being able to listen to your client. They're the ones who are coming with a vision. They're the ones, for example, ladies, there's a high possibility a lady started dreaming or thinking about their wedding from the time they were probably flower girls in another person's wedding. There's this thing they've always grown with, wanting to see in their wedding. And that is what our work is to do, especially as service providers, to make sure they live their dream. Not what is right or what is wrong, is to make sure we are able to give them the dream that they've always wanted.
Wow. Listening to clients is one of the things that, I guess it's a skill that every event specialist, especially if you want to grow, you need to learn. I hope you're catching this, guys. You have your notebooks. I have mine. So, Mr. Bosire, just picking up from where Mr. Jackson has left us off, clients come in different skills. We have the social clients, we have the corporate clients. What would you say are among the strategies and considerations someone needs to think about as an event producer as you approach these different categories of clients?
Thank you very much. The company that I work for, Expose Limited, we have those two types of clients. We have the social clients. Mostly they deal with festivals, weddings, and then we have the corporate clients. Now, the core business of Expose Limited is that our focus, our 70% focus is on the corporate clients. As regards to the scale, the first thing that is a sure distinction is that corporate clients have bigger budgets to spend. So that means if you're quoting, always quote on the top, or your margins need to be in a very exaggerated way. For example, if you're charging for a speaker top, for a corporate client, you may charge them 10,500 shillings. But for a social client, you have to be very aware that this client might be financing this event from his or her own pocket. So that means this unit, you'll charge them at either 50% discount or even at a rate where you'll ask them the famous question, what is your budget? But for corporate clients, we usually have a scale that we know we are ready to lose the business and lose it because the client has said their budget cannot meet what we are quoting for. The reason why we decided to go that way is because there's an intense price for that usually happens, especially in the event industry. And for us to keep our lights on, we need to meet a certain threshold of revenue. So that's what we usually do. And for the place that I work for, and also in my years of experience, sometimes we have the global clients, corporate clients, and we also have the local corporate clients. So that one you can also use as strategy, meaning you can quote for your units or items based on the dollar value, meaning you just have to keep, it's very dynamic. It's never a cookie cutter scenario that A, B. you can always go from A to Z. Thank you.
So, I think back to you, just as a follow-up question. One of the challenges we've been experiencing in the event space is the need for standardization. So where does that fall in terms of handling the clients? How do we as suppliers standardize our prices but still cater for the corporate and the budget clients?
I think that's where event associations come into play. Because if we have a very vibrant event associate or community, they'll be able to bring us all together in one room. We agree on a certain percentage on how to price our things. That will mean it will give value for us as event owners, employees, and also suppliers. For example, I think all of us have been exposed to this scenario where a client will get a quotation from you, then they will go to another client, get the same quotation, and I can say in Kiswahili, they can say very, very politely, company B gives me this item at this price. That's very fine, it's a free market. However, if we are able to standardize our prices, it will mean that it will give us the same level or competitive playing field. If an equipment is 10,500, the lowest I can go is either 8,500. And this is where we need event associations to lobby for us. Because if you're able to have a good event association, it can actually go even to the government and ask them, we have these types of things we are importing. Could you give us a waiver or something that will make us give value or earn value from what we are selling? Because the company that I work for, I'll use this example. We are an audiovisual equipment company. If we import something, for example, for 1 million shillings, there's a time frame where we expect to recoup our investment. And the good thing about an audiovisual equipment, it doesn't rot or expire, not like food. So that means sometimes we might be pushed to sell this equipment or hire it out at a lower value so that we say it in Kiswahili, because it's Kiswahili, we say, wacha hii kitu itoke kwa store, wacha tu itoke. Because the business is very, we are not getting business. Sometimes it's high season, low season. So for event associations, they can start these conversations. They bring us in one room, they tell us, we need all these 500 companies to be in this association. Let's price our things in this pricing. That would mean client akiruka, go to A, B, C, D, he'll find we are the same price. And what we can return to them is higher value, spectacular events. We are very professional in what we do.
All right. Well, you guys have heard. We need to join. If you're not in an association, join, because that's usually the purpose of a working organization. I'd like to turn to you, Mr. Jimton. With your years of experience in the industry, how would you say we've evolved in terms of standardization and also as industry players, how we are working together? If you were to look back when you started versus now, what would you say are the main things that we've improved on or are working at the moment?
I think over the years, from the time I started, one of the things that I've seen grow and improve day by day is creativity. When the industry was young, there was little creativity. And there was also very little flexibility in terms of options of what somebody can do. But over the years, because of the influx of other new entrants into the market, you find that there's a lot of creativity that has come into play. That if if what we were doing some many years ago, if you continue doing it now, you'll find yourself out of business. So you have to keep pace in terms of even the changing trends. There's a lot of trends that are coming into the market that were not there before. And also, the industry is also churning out a lot of other opportunities and other, in terms of equipment. You know, initially when we started, if you're doing catering, like what I was doing, you know, you'd only probably cater and, you know, use maybe silver cutlery and, you know, some white plates of some sort. But over the years, now things have changed. We now have colored cutlery, we have colored, you know, crockery and all that. So the industry is changing. So that, and also the issue of the creativity that has come in, and also the opportunities that many other people and customers are demanding for. Social media has helped a lot to be able to bring us into another dimension of creativity because of what is available. The resources and the ideas that sometimes a client comes to you with an idea of what they want. And you know, you have to work around it and see, this is what my client is asking for. How do I supply that? And that presents a new challenge as well as an opportunity to move to the next level because you cannot remain where you started. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, yes, I think even with the opening up of the digital space, creativity has grown so much because of Pinterest. I have clients who come with a Pinterest picture and tell you, I want this. So you try and figure out where to get them. So it is a major ingredient into how I'm sure you're maintaining your thriving business. So to Mr. Jackson, we have the clients, we have the creativity, we have the digital platform. How are you in your company utilizing the digital space in growing event photography?
I started off my photography journey back in Dubai about 8 years ago. And the one thing which, when I came actually back to Kenya, the event industry, according to the people who were there, they used to tell us that Kenya, we are lagging 7 years behind. Like you can imagine, probably, if I can use the same example, the crockeries and maybe the kind of cameras guys were using by that time, they were about 7 years behind. But then it's so amazing to see how much, again, social media has really come into play, that now some of us who came with a bit of that level of exposure, we were able to come, you know, motivate young guys, try to lift up the industry, especially when it came into photography, create mentorship groups, tell guys there's a better, it's not just about taking a photo. Because I remember there was a time when, I think it was in 2018, that still clients were they were really, really interested, especially when, you know the paparazzis, yeah? Mm-hmm. The guys who come take photos on your events, and they give you the hard copies up on Apple. There was that was still happening during that season. But then now social media for us, it was a platform where we were able to showcase what we are able to offer. We might not be able to give you the hard copies instantly, but then if you give us a bit of time, maybe about 2 weeks, we are able to convert your photos into a photo book. If you give us a bit of time, we are able to make your video, which was not rehearsed, because remember there's always this level of expectation. Unataka harusi ikae kama movie. But then, you know, every client wants that. But then you can remember, movies are scripted, they have editing season, everything is so much arranged and, you know, written down. But then a wedding, it's something that you don't plan in terms of scripting because you might not be able to know how it will unfold. But then with the help of social media, we ended up coming to show them that, you know what, this is your wedding, but still we can make it look like a movie. We were able to upload our photos, we were able to upload our videos, and majority of these clients were able to, you know, start to get that feeling of, you know what, it might have been a simple wedding, but through the way you were able to capture these moments, it ended up looking like, you know, it was a wedding which was probably with an explosion, with a very high budget. It was just a simple wedding, but then this level of creativity helped us make sure that the wedding looks a bit more extra compared to what it was.
Awesome. So I'd like to just take a break there. All of you have pieces of paper in front of you and a pen. So for those watching, I'm going to ask the three panelists a question, and you're also going to be participating in this. Write your answer on the chat as they write on their paper. So the first question I have for you three gentlemen is, what do you think in shillings is the annual turnover of the events industry in Kenya? In shillings, a number. Give us a number. I hope you're also writing on the chat section. Are you ready? All right. 1, 2, 3. Let's see. So 5 billion, 10 to 18 billion, and 17 billion. Wow. Do you guys think they're right? So according to just simple calculations that we did at TWESA, and also using the database that we have from the Kenya Wedding Awards, it would shock us that the annual turnover of the events industry in Kenya is actually 554 billion. Guys, like if you try and do that math and try see where your bank account is, you're like, where? But if you were to break it down, of course, the corporate clients are spending about 306 billion. Weddings are spending about 150 billion per year. And of course, every year, for as long as the wedding, creativity rises, so does the cost of the wedding. But yeah, 554 billion shillings. That's the annual turnover, approximate annual turnover. Second question. Remember, guys, you're also participating. I would like to see your answers on the chat section. The second question is a bit personal, I might say, but do you have a succession plan for your businesses? It's a yes or no. One, 2, 3, go. So we have 1 no and 2 yeses. In the chat section, I'm sure some of us are wondering, how guys, this guy's already thinking of a succession plan. Mi nafikiria shabari za weekend. I see you there. But yes, these are some of the questions as an event industry we need to be asking ourselves as we grow thriving businesses. What does it mean to thrive? And once it thrives, what next? Will our children enjoy our late night setups? And how do we recoup and enjoy our retirement? So I'd like to turn to our two gentlemen who answered yes. What was the turning point when you started thinking about the succession plan, and why do you feel it's important? The question is to both of you.
Well, I think any business that has existed even in the past, and even what we are doing now, sometimes you find that what you're building is beyond just yourself. I mean, you have a family, you have people who you're raising, and there's always that possibility of them, yes, they are doing their own studies, they will probably become whatever careers they are in, But there's always that element that a family business once started, it can grow and become a big conglomerate of some sort. And the opportunity sometimes is massive, because something that has been built, I mean, you look at any other company that exists today, whether it's in telecommunication, or whether it's in health, or whether it's even legal companies, professional companies, you find it started from somebody, companies, and then it grew into a mammoth of some sort, a big industry. And you find over time, as time goes by, the old people will always grow older, and the business is still running. So there's always need to have a succession plan that can then succeed and move it to the next level. And sometimes also you find the original idea where it started, as it continues to grow, it continues to morph and change and become something more magnificent, more bigger, more elaborate, that can be able to accommodate things as time is also changing. And so you find fresh new blood that is always coming in, the younger generation that are coming up. Probably they have new ideas that the original person didn't have. And so you find the company where it started and where it is maybe some years down the line, you find it, it has really moved quite a bit in terms of development, in terms of growth, and in terms of ideas, and so on and so forth. So there's always need to have that succession plan because of those possibilities that are always there. Sometimes you never know. Maybe it started like a hobby. For some of us, it started like a hobby. It's like, I like cooking, so let me cook for people. And over time, you realize this thing is turning into something big. I never, for instance, for myself, never thought I would do catering. Me, I wanted to do hotel. I wanted to run a cafeteria. And one day, somebody approached me and said, can you cook for me? I have a meeting. And I said, yes. And that became my first client for outside catering. I never planned for it. I never thought about it. I never even thought that I would ever be a caterer of that nature. And so the thing has morphed to a place whereby now it's able to accommodate quite a bit of stuff that I do, from things like, outside catering on a daily basis to people and companies, individuals, corporates, and even to cafeteria management for organizations that need staff food. So the thing is morphing and changing, and that's why earlier I was talking about the issue of flexibility, because that allows the company to grow rather than to stay. If I originally stayed where I was, or where I started with the original idea, it would probably still be a cafeteria, which is not bad. But sometimes that flexibility allows the opportunity to grow and morph and come into something bigger than even probably what I imagined.
At the beginning. All right. But Mr. Jimton, I just want to ask, what was that moment where, as an events person or player, you realized you started working on your succession plan? Like, is there any story behind it, or was it like, oh, we are growing, so?
Well, I think, like I said, looking at, because life is moving and things are changing as we move along. And sometimes you realize, if you look around, you discover any other company that you see that has grown to be whatever they are, it started from an individual. And then it was handed over to the next generation. And then it was handed over to the next generation, and it became big and massive. And sometimes because, you have family, you think, maybe one of my children probably will grow and like what I do. I've seen companies, I've seen, legal entities or companies that were started by one man. And, the passion that he encompassed in what he was doing was loved by the family, the children, and they were able to, follow in the same footsteps of probably their mother or their father. And so for me, I think that's one of the things that drove me. And looking at the fact that I have children, maybe one day, one of them would want, or both of them, or all of them would want to continue in the same line of business that I'm doing. And sometimes we say, why reinvent a wheel when you already have a system that is running? You can come in and continue building on the same. Sometimes we say, our young people are always told, even as we were told when we were young, ukimaliza masomo utapata kazi. That means you will probably go into employment. But in reality, sometimes that employment, there's an opportunity here that is a business that is thriving, that then you can do and succeed and really succeed in it. And so our children, as much as they do their own studies and they have their own passions and desires, later on in the future, you never know. Probably this thing has become too big for them to be able to think about employment elsewhere. They'll just come and continue running in the same line and move it to the next level.
All right. So remember, guys, we're taking questions from our online participants, and we'll be taking them in a few minutes. Just to let Mr. Jackson answer his question. I mean, you're a relatively young guy. At what point were you thinking about a succession plan?
There was a conference we attended by a speaker from South Africa called Vusi. And he taught us about, being an entrepreneur and also being a self-employed person. And I think that's the time when it came and dawned on me that it's no longer about me. I'm not trying to probably just put a plate of food for myself and my family on the table. You remember we have, under Jackson Mwangi photography, we have a team of about 15 people. When you come to realize that all these 15 people, they equally have families and they're depending on probably the amount of money that you're paying all these other guys, it stops being about you. And that's when I came to realize that I might not be able to shoot for the next maybe 20 years. Probably even 15 years, I might not be able to do it. But what is the plan? Which plan do I have that still I'm so sure that the team that we have, a team of editors, of photographers, videographers, which plan do I have if I stop shooting? These guys can still continue making a living from this company that we've been able to create for the last 5 years. And when that dawned on me, I came to realize it's no longer about being self-employed. I need to think about as an entrepreneur. One of the things that I remember our former president, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, said, KANU ni chama ya baba na mama na itaongoza kwa miaka 100. If you've done business, or rather if you've studied business, actually they tell you if you're starting a business that will end in the next 10 years, when probably you die or you get married, or maybe something else happens, it is not the right business for you to start. You need to think about this business for the next 100 years. When you're long gone, when you're old and gray, will you have a source of income? And those are the things that you need to plan now. You don't wait to plan. Plan now and wait.
Wow, guys. So I guess as we get the questions from our online participants, the question is posed to you. Are you currently an entrepreneur or are you self-employed? That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. So I'd like to invite my colleague, Mr. Joe, who will give us the questions from our online participants, and then our panelists can answer them.
To our panelists, thank you for the great work you're doing. So I think let me just mention, thank you guys who are joining our online platform. I see a few people here. Let me just make some shout out here. I see Gillian Wafula, Events in Motion. I see Averick Events are here, MTN, Eventive are here, Centurion, I can see you, MTS, Brian. There are a lot of people here. And people are liking the conversation. They are loving the conversation. And there's a question here, and I think it's to you, Jimton. Someone is asking here that I saw something about documentation that are needed for you to supply food. What documentation? From Jadala Prince Tambo is asking, what documentation do you need to supply food to a school? Since that is within your space, maybe you can advise Jadala.
Thank you, Jadala, for a good question. I think one of the documentations that is required to be able to supply any entity, the first ones, of course, are the legal documents. I mean, you must, first of all, be a registered entity, a legal entity that exists within the nation of Kenya, according to the laws of the land. That is the first thing. And then, of course, you need all manner of government documentations from the licensing to the food hygiene certificates, to staff medical certificates, because your staff always have to be examined every 6 months, that as requirement by the law. Every 6 months, your staff have to be, you take them to a health facility, a recommended health facility by the government, where they are tested, and you get the test certificates that you always present to those organizations, so that they know that your staff are up to the job. And also the other licenses that are required for food, like food hygiene certificates, you need trade licenses and all that. So they are not very many, but like they are just about like 5 or so that are very major. Yeah.
But the reality is that I cannot just wake up simply because I know how to cook,
Yeah.
and then purport to supply food to an institution. So there are things that you have to follow.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I hope, Jadala, you've been answered. There's another one I think I can throw it to any one of you here. Someone is asking, but of course, because Jimton, you have been in the space for, actually, he said 20 years. That's quite a long time. And I think, Bosire, at some point you mentioned this, and people are asking. You guys are mentioning about associations, and someone is asking here, Averik Events, there is a mention about joining associations. Is there a list of available associations that we can join in the events industry? So sorry, I'm coming back to you because you have had a lot of experience in this industry over those 20 years. Is there any that you know that has existed and maybe you joined, and any benefits you reaped from it? Or do you think it's important, because Bosire mentioned it, do you think it's important for us as event players to have one?
Yeah, it is important. It's very, very important actually to be in an association, because, I mean, any industry that I've seen, many industries that exist do have associations. Why? Because it gives an umbrella. And an umbrella provides quite a bit of opportunities, like had been mentioned earlier by the panelists who studied here. It provides an opportunity for many, many things that we can negotiate as a group. There are things, if I go to negotiate with the government as an individual, I will not succeed. But if we go as a group, you'll find that we will have a voice that then the government or a government agency can then be able to listen to. Including even facilities from institutions that lend. You will hear of institutions that lend money to businesses. And sometimes if you have an umbrella of members, then you can have a voice to be able to negotiate and to be able to find, leverage in terms of the benefits that can come with it. And so, yes, there's a benefit, there's quite a bit of benefit that you can be able to get from associations. I know in our industry, we've been trying to work out, coming together and forming that. And it's been, quite a bit of a challenge, but we are on the right track. We are on the right track.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe Jackson and Bosire, do you guys belong to any association?
I know one, which I used to be a member, Kitambo, then I left. It's called, I think, PAK, Photographers Association of Kenya. One of my biggest challenges was majority of these associations that we used to have in the event space in Kenya, the idea was they were run more like a business. Guys are trying to take advantage of membership fees and all those things. So the founders who started this kind of associations, they never had a vision for it. It was a way of probably making money through subscriptions and all those things. So majority of them, they ended up not working. Okay. But equally, I've seen some which work.
Okay.
However, they are not registered. They operate through WhatsApp or Telegram groups.
Yes.
And they are very effective.
Okay.
They're not registered, but they're very, very effective compared to some which were registered.
Okay. Yeah. What about you, Bosire? Any association you belong to, or?
In this panel, I'm representing, I think, 2 personas. The first persona is that an employed person in an events company, and my second persona is an event person, uko nje. Now, I belong to at Expose, we belong to Event Managers Association of Kenya. And my second persona as an event person, I belong to an unofficial association called Event Connect. So Event Connect is an organic group, meaning there's no membership fees. It's just entry-level people who join, and then they are scaled up to reach the levels that you guys are. The second one is about IMAC. IMAC is a professional body joined so that people can be categorized based on their revenues and membership fees. But just to find the sweet spot or the right formula for an event association, which has been a challenge all through the years, is because I might call it the ego effect, meaning it's like a membership club. Company A, they're a humongous company, many years in the event industry. Their revenues are even 1 billion Kenya shillings. Then there's an entry-level member, a university graduate, has studied hospitality, wants to join this association. So when these people are in one room, the entry-level member will feel very humbled, and they won't be able to voice their concerns or even put into that. So the best sweet spot for an event association, make everyone equal. Yes, there might be membership fees, but give value to these two types of people. For a big company, give them value by giving them things which they are interested about: lobbying, tax reliefs, financial education. For this entry-level person, tell them they belong to this association by telling them you can intern in these big companies, so that it's a symbiotic relationship.
Okay.
So that's what I think. So.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I like what you've captured. So Jackson mentioned about ownership. Of course, you've also mentioned about it all boils down to, is the association meeting the needs of the members, whether big or small? They need to feel like they are part of it. And that is why TWESA is here. And we are here to meet that gap, to try and see how can we meet those things that these people are asking here. And there is someone here who is asking, and this one is open to any one of you, is asking, Mundus Sound, they're asking, can the panel clarify on whom they think they are in terms of, do they consider themselves a business, as business owners, entrepreneurs, investors, or self-employed? So that's the first part of that question. And then number two, can the panel talk about the good and bad of business scalability? Does it pose a danger to the founder's vision, quality issues, relationships, etc.? Umeshika hiyo swali, hizo maswali. So the second one, can the panel talk about good and bads of business scalability? Scaling in business, scalability of business, does it pose a danger to the founder's vision, quality issues, relationships? I hope you have understood. So that as you scale, then does it pose a threat to the original vision? And then the first part is, what do you consider yourself? Are you business owner, entrepreneurs, or investors, or are you self-employed? So any one of you can take up that first part and the second part of that question.
Let me say that for me, I think I am an entrepreneur, but I'm of course through that I'm self-employed, because self-employment basically means that I'm doing something by my own self. So I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a businessman, and at the same time I'm self-employed. I would, as when I started, I think I started just like I wanted to invest in something that would give me a return. I started as a small investor. But as time proceeded and time moved by, I discovered that this thing is not a part-time, because sometimes when you do it as a part-time, then the language differs. But if it is something that I'm doing on a day-to-day, then that is what occupies me. So I'm actually busy doing it. And I do this when I go to sleep. When I wake up, I think about food and the customers that I'm dealing with. And so that's number one. On the other question, if I may be able to answer, is you asking, number two was? Scalability. I would say, in terms of scalability, you know, business has a growth path. And sometimes I like a growth path that is natural, that is not being pushed by other external factors. External factors would be, you know, competition. Mine has been very natural. I've always told myself and the team that works for me that in our company, we want to not be competing with anyone. So we create our own design, we create our own way of marketing, we create our own, the kind of clientele we want to serve. For instance, I like serving both corporates and individuals. I don't actually choose between big and small. You know, there are companies that probably will deal corporate only and not touch events in terms of weddings and parties. I do both. And the scalability for me has been very natural in terms of the way it comes. We grow naturally without being really allowing external forces to be able to push us. And also the reality that as you move along, you discover that your strength is increasing. So while I was able to do, maybe when I started, maybe 200 people in a day, as I move along, I discovered that my capacity increased and I can do more. I can do 500 people in a day. And then I moved on, I discovered I can do 1,000 people. And then I moved on and I discovered I can do probably multiple events in one single day, in one single time. Then I moved on and then I discovered I can actually do multi-county events. In other words, I can be in Nairobi, I'm in Mombasa, I'm in Kisumu at the same time. Same company doing the same. And you find that there's no dropping in terms of the quality of what we are providing, despite the fact that we're in different locations. So scalability can only be dependent on an individual. What is the capacity of a person? Because sometimes if you scale up and you don't have capacity, you find you'll begin messing up.
Okay.
But if you allow it to be natural, then you find that you only take what you can do.
Yes.
You know, you don't take what is not beyond your capacity because customers are asking. Customers may be coming to you and saying, I want this. In one day, maybe 3 customers, but you don't have the capacity. But if you have grown into it, then you can find it's very natural for you to do it and it's not even a pressure point.
Okay, thank you for that. As you pass over, I think also to add to what you guys are sharing about scalability and whether there might be a possibility of compromising the quality. Speaking as an MC, for me, you see like the way you can be multi-county. Unfortunately, my product is personal. So I can only be at one event at a time unless they are structured so that I can do one, say, between 7 and 9 and another one later. So that you'd find, for me to scale, I have to expand my business, meaning I have to bring other MCs on board. But so that I don't compromise on the quality, I have to train my MCs. So that you'd find in my company, I'm not alone. For me to scale, I recruit so that we can handle 2-3 events in a day, but so as not to compromise on the quality, we train them. So it's all about scalability is possible, and it's possible to scale without compromising on the quality or the vision of the brand. So let's go to Jackson.
On the same?
Yeah, on those 2 issues about how do you consider yourself? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you self-employed? Are you an investor? And then just touch on scalability.
Actually, I started business, yeah? I studied business, and the reality is that the foundation of any business is self-employment. You want to pay your rent, you want to eat, you want your kids to probably go to school, maybe not the quality of school, but at least you're able to maneuver around what is coming along your way, yeah? So self-employment is always the beginning point. It's always the first point whenever you're starting a business. But then as you grow, you probably become an entrepreneur. How? As a photographer, I saw there was a gap, especially when it came to a bit of entertainment in photography. That's when we came with 360 photo booth. But then now we came to realize the same guys who are getting married, eventually they end up getting kids. They want to do, their families end up growing, becoming bigger. They have birthdays and all these things. We came up with another product called Cine Studios, so that since we can't only be doing weddings, we made available other forms of photography that these clients still can be able to consume. So automatically you grow to become an entrepreneur. But then guess what? Along the entrepreneur direction, you meet other entrepreneurs. You come to realize as a photographer, you're able to create this level of margin in terms of cash flows and all these things. You end up probably making now new investment, either in real estate, probably in sound. You end up making new investment in probably things which can be able to bring in money, but then they are not maybe your direction of expertise. Scalability, if I got that question right, he was asking if, growing your, indirectly it's more like if you grow your business, does it affect the vision of the founder? Let me say, visions are very flexible. It's like water. Depending on the bottle that you put it in, it can be able to adapt into that. I was looking at a documentary for a company like Toyota when they started with the Land Cruiser FJ in 1950. If you look at the Land Cruiser which the original founder had in mind, it is not the kind of Land Cruiser that we have now. The theme of Land Cruiser this year is it will take you where you want to go and bring you back. But that was not the vision of the founder. The beauty of scaling up your business is that you bring new mindset, you bring new thoughts that are able to scale up your business even to dimensions or spaces that you never thought of. I'll give you another example of probably like churches. Majority of these pastors, they were musicians. All the famous pastors, they were musicians. They thought of singing, to their minds, they knew probably they were just going to be musicians in probably worship team, concerts, and all these things. But then from music, they ended up realizing they can be able to preach. People like T.D. Jakes. He's one of the biggest preachers in the world now. Yet he was a musician. We have people like the famous Joshua Selman. He was just a choir leader, but then he became a preacher. Now he runs one of the biggest churches in Africa. Visions are not casted on stones. To whatever you started does not mean that's how it's going to end.
Wow.
It will keep on changing depending on the time, the season, and probably even the people that you're bringing into your space. Sorry to allow me to add this. Yeah, when we started off as wedding photographers, I never thought I would end up doing documentaries. But then the reality is that now we are doing a lot of documentaries, probably compared to the number of weddings that we are doing. Did I ever think that I'll do documentaries at one point? No. But then as we kept on growing, bringing new equipments, this kind of cameras, our team were like, you know what, like the wedding you did for probably, let's say, John. That guy is the head of communication in World Vision. Why don't you approach him with an idea of doing a documentary for World Vision? And you see, through that you end up getting new experiences, new exposures, and you end up doing something new.
Great, great. And then Bosire, for you, and of course, adding to what Jackson is saying, as you expand, for you, because I'm sure where you were 2 years ago is not where you are right now. So chances are you've expanded. Has it compromised on your vision, or your vision is now distorted and blurry, or it's still as clear as it was when you started?
I think it is very clear. And I'll say for here, I think you should also add employed, because sometimes event business owners, it's also good to invite your employees to attend a function like this one, either virtually, so they understand how you guys run businesses. Because sometimes most of the employees, including myself, will just assume we get our salaries and that's it. But sometimes we might forget how you guys search for that business. Also, just you hustle for that business. And for us, we're just saying, okay, as long as I'm paid, that's fine. Also, you're a bevy of MCs. So for me, I'll categorize myself as an entrepreneur, meaning that sometimes I get projects which we are not able to meet because maybe the budget is too low for the clients, and they genuinely say budgets are very low. So what I do, I channel it out to the networks that are within my reach, and they get value because they're able to operate it. For scalability, I will say there's one thing that an association can come into play. TWESA or any other association can educate the business owners on how to capitalize as an investor. Because I think Entrepreneurship is good, just making the business run. But we should look at this option of where we can copy the model, the fintechs or the guys who do coding work with. They look for investors. If the investor can buy into that product, they inject a certain amount of capital where this company is just entry level but can jump around even 5 steps ahead and now be competing with the big players.
Wow.
And that's where an association can come in.
Wow.
I've seen it with event companies in Kenya. It's an open secret where investor conferences are usually held in the first world economies. So these companies know, I only have, my equipment is about 500K. I have 2 speaker tops, I have 1 mixer, I have 2 microphones. So I'll fly out to either Germany, USA, get into these investor conferences. You sit face to face with them. You pitch your business. You tell them, my business is Bosire Events, and this is my documentation. I comply, I have my taxes, I have all the paperwork that will make me legal. But I need $1 million from you. You invest for 20 years. That money is enough if you have the vision, you have structures in your company to now push you to the big players. And you know, sometimes event companies sell when I'm scrolling through Instagram, I see this beautiful setup. I'll buy into that company. And the other way is that I know Mark. I trust him. I'll give him this business. But if you are able to inject this money, you do good setups, 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs, you'll be a big player. So the investor thing is sometimes ignored because we are afraid of selling 60% or even 40% of our business. But associations can help us, educate us on that.
Yes.
So we stop or we lessen being entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And be people who can be very comfortable in selling our business.
Yes.
And avoid the late night setups. The business just flows. So we're in the big league. So investor can be a good option.
Thank you, Bosire. That's beautiful. And I think through that you have answered a question that Michael had asked online, because Michael had asked, how can I raise funds to boost my business? And basically what you're telling Mike here is that don't be afraid of letting go some shares in exchange for money. And that's part of the thing, one of the things that TWESA is doing. When you say about partnerships, who are we bringing on board? Financiers. For people like Michael who are asking, I have the idea, I don't have money. And so, just to clarify, those are areas that associations should meet, and that's where you need to be in TWESA. There's a guy who's on you, Jimton, just to clarify as we finish. There are a lot of questions here, so thank you guys actually for participating and for joining our live. Jadala is back to you, and he's asking, at what stage do I need a catering lady? So I don't know, but Jadala is also mentioning that he's from away home events. I don't know what, Jadala, you do at away homes event, but since you're mentioning about catering, I think I'll put it to Jimton because he's a caterer. So I don't know how you will answer this one, my guy. This is, at what point do I need a caterer? Maybe as from a point of a client, this is an event of 5 people. Nitaambia tu house help apikie hawa hii chakula. Or maybe, do you have a number? Like, ikifika hapa, please involve a caterer. Or how do you answer, Jadala?
If I got the question right, there is different aspects of where maybe a different standpoint from where somebody can start, where somebody has started their business. And so, like for me, when I started, it was a smaller hotel, employed 1 person. As we moved along, we discovered the work was becoming too much, employed the 2nd person. As we moved along like that, we employed the 3rd person. So you can be able to see the workload that is coming, and that would push you into employing the next person. I guess any organization that does any business Employment will always be based on the fact that there's more work that is coming on board that requires an extra hand, because you cannot stretch some people too far. You know, if you have one chef, how much can one chef do? For instance, if you are cooking for 50 people, or say 10 people, one chef can produce if it's not a very wide menu. But if it is a very complicated menu, you can find you're cooking only for 10 people, but because of the way the menu is complicated, maybe you need 2 or 3 chefs and some other people to assist them, you know, stewards and so on and so forth. So it depends with the nature of type of client you're serving and what kind of menu, how wide, how involving is it, you know, because sometimes also you'll find some people like chefs who are trained in one line, probably what we call a hot kitchen, and they don't know about baking. So you have a client who wants some pastries that needs somebody who has an experience or a learning in bakery. So it again depends. And then you find some chefs who are basically trained in African cuisine. They don't know about Indian cuisine. And that's another world. So you have a client who's asking you for that. Then you will have to find somebody who is able to do that. Again, depending on the magnitude of the job, then you'll be able to know how many people do you require to do that. Yeah.
So if I'm getting you need a wide pool of also chefs, because they are pastry chefs. They are chefs who do cuisines from, like, for example, I might have an event, it's for 5 people, but they're all Mexicans.
Yeah.
And maybe the chef I have, he just does probably, pilau, you know, pilau njeri ama diogani. So for you in that space, that would mean you need to have broad networks, and it is informed by the needs of the client, not necessarily by the number of the event or number of people you are catering for.
That's right.
Okay, that's brilliant.
Let me give an example. One time I got an order to supply a corporate client, and it was a very complicated menu because it was a huge event, 500 people, and that's way back, earlier in the days when we started. If I remember well, that must have been in 2010. So you see, that's like 13 years ago. And this client had 500 clients. It was a luncheon with a very complicated kind of a menu that we had not been used to. And so, but they wanted me to do the job. I discovered I don't have, the people I had at that time could not produce that kind of a menu. And so, because I'd been in the industry for some time, I had, you know, known quite a bit of chefs. And through the links, I managed to get one friend who connected me to a chef who came from a Mombasa hotel, actually a 5-star hotel. And he came all the way. You know, the bill was huge. You know, I had to compensate and pay him for that. But he was actually the head chef in one of those big hotels. And he was able to come and, you know, help me produce what that client needed. Because we had no experience at that time to produce that kind of a menu that the client was asking for. So we were able to do it and, you know, succeeded very well.
Thank you. Outsourcing, eh? That's good. There is a question here by Kanana. I think any one of you can answer without necessarily marketing the specific thing she's after. She's asking, which is the best bank that finances business in terms of expansion? This is Purity from Target Entertainment Limited. This is very specific. So perhaps kuna mtu hapa ametumwa na a particular bank. But what is your experience in terms of banking? Do you think it's important also to get the right banking partner or financing partner? And in your journey, maybe without specifically, because they need to pay for this space, without specifically mentioning a particular bank, maybe in your experience, do you think, ama ni watu wanatuma kwa simu yangu tu, tumalize hii maneno. Do you think banks are important and accounts, and as you try and answer these questions from Kanana?
I will answer that in a very local way. I have 3 bank accounts for my businesses, The best banks, especially when it comes to businesses, personally, I find Tier 2 banks, because we have Tier 1, 2, and 3, Tier 2 banks, they will always give you better offers. You'll always get very low interest rates. Exchange for dollar won't be probably equal to the other banks, especially the ones which are in Tier 1. But also in Tier 1, if you have good relationships with those banks, you're probably going to get a large amount in terms of either, let's say, loans. You're going to get probably maybe something close to probably 40 million, 50 million in Tier 1 banks, which Tier 2 can be able to give you at a very affordable, or even maybe just an easier way for you to be able to do a proper repayment plan for that. But if your business is probably not to that level, Tier 2 banks are really, really nice. Can I mention a bank? It's okay?
Yes, you can clarify. I think the audience here are saying, please mention. And please, those banks that are being mentioned, please give, see us kando to one sidebar. Yes, let's go ahead, Jack.
You might want to think, why do most businesses do, or rather go for family bank, especially family bank, yeah? Majority of these to Biasharas over here, they always go for family bank. Family bank is a Tier 2 bank, but then why? I think maybe that's for them to do their research. But I'm equally in family bank, and I'm also in NCB and ABSA bank, yeah? But then again, when it comes to Tier 1 banks, yeah? I think it depends with the current government that is in place. When the former government was in place, NCB was the best bank, to be honest. You know, they would probably, you just walk in and they'll give you probably a loan of up to 8 million without having any
Unsecured.
Unsecured loans, you know. Currently, they've lowered that to about 3 million. If you go to ABSA, they're giving you a bit of, you know, more than what this other bank is giving you. So when it comes to Tier 1 banks, I tend to feel that depending on the government that is in place, you know, you can choose which one to bank with at that particular time. But if you want just a bank which you can be able to use, you know, depending on the time without having any interference with the kind of government that is in place, Tier 2 banks are really, really nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bosire, you want to add anything to that about banks and lending institutions?
Yes, I think I have something to add. From my experience, we deal with blue chip corporate companies in Kenya at Expose. And the banks that I've seen that they are very proactive in trying to do business with us or as suppliers is, I'll mention the banks that I've seen. So it's KCB Bank, we have Equity, ABSA, and Citibank. So there's this specific client, their payment cycle is usually 90 days. So they give us a huge project, maybe 1 million plus. And they also give us an option of purchase order financing. So they tell us these banks are ready. We have already initiated this conversation. So you guys can go to them, talk to them. If you have an account with either of them, they're going to finance that PO. Because sometimes we have huge backdrops to design, and we need to pay these people who want to do this thing. Another thing about financing, always seek loans if you have the financial discipline, because sometimes you might get that loan, but then use it for personal things, then not in your business. That means your business will just collapse. So also that thing needs to be ingrained in the event industry players, and financial education, because we are very liquid. I'm paid 500K, I transfer maybe 200K into the business account, 300 now it's my money. So you find a company, the shelf life is 2 years, 5 years, because there's that figure you have mentioned, 500 billion. Actually, I'm shocked, because that's a lot of money that is being generated in the event industry. But how much money is pumped, it's within that industry? Very little, because somebody pays you in cash, it's never in the system, you don't have a KRA PIN, and you just operate on a personal thing. So you have a good relationship manager at this bank, they give you that loan just in a very weird way. and then you end up wasting it. So also that question should be a need of financial education, which I think you need to pay TWESA. TWESA needs to pay me. You guys need to teach us about financial discipline.
I like it. I like how you've handled that, Bosire, so that it's like the way I think people who bet tomorrow you win jackpot, 100 million, which you had not planned for. So you have 100 million, you do not know, niweke wapi hii. In real estate, do I? So also you must plan for the money and invest in the right area. So you need financial discipline. I like that, financial discipline. There's someone here, I think, to any one of you. There's someone here called Ian Silla for Zuland is asking, as a fairly new jumping castle service provider, how can you advise on how to get clients and generate leads for new business? How do you advise Ian? He's just bought a new bouncing castle. How do I get clients and how do I generate new businesses? This is open to anyone?
Let me say that the times have changed. Initially, when we started, we got our business a lot from word of mouth, references. I mean, like 80% of the clients who came to me were referred by someone I've worked for, someone who was happy with my job. So, and that is still even relevant today in terms of getting new business, getting business. Sometimes it's like you did for somebody who then referred you to somebody else, and then the network continues growing like that. And that is very organic and very natural and is one of the best ways of any business staying afloat. But the other aspect that has come into being is marketing. Marketing always works, as we always say. If you market, you'll find that people will be able to find and know who you are and ask for a service. I mean, some of us who have been in the industry for some time, sometimes even me, I am looking for a service provider within my industry. And sometimes I will go and Google. I'll go to YouTube and be able to see what somebody else is doing in another product that I'm looking for and being able to find that. So the biggest way is the opportunity that we are having today that was not there initially is to be able to do social media. Take good photos of what you're doing and post it in the forums that are available. There are quite a number. And, sometimes even go ahead and advertise for it. Sometimes people just post things on social media and they don't advertise. There's the other aspect of really paying Facebook or paying Instagram or any of those channels to market. So you're paying a rate to market yourself. And that will give you clientele because we always say marketing works. Some of these big tech companies or some of the companies that have existed for many years, for instance, if I mention maybe Coca-Cola, they have been there for eons of years. And they don't seem to have a very big competitor, yet they do quite a bit of marketing. In terms of branding items that that is in the market, and so on and so forth. So marketing works, but also depend on word of mouth and references from people you've worked for that can then give you business as you grow. And it doesn't work in a day,
Yeah.
For someone who has been in the industry for long, you find you have a huge network of clients you've done for. I mean, I still get events from people I did their wedding 12 years ago, and now they have children, and those children, maybe they want a birthday, they want this, they want that. And that keeps on growing as you move along. So it is not something that just comes in a day.
Thank you. I think also to help in answering, let me ask any of you, in fact, all of you, was your first event paid? The first event you ever did, 2000 and? When did you do your first event?
2003.
Was it a paid event?
It was a paid event, yes.
What about you, Jack? No, it wasn't paid. What about you? Not paid. What about our moderator also gets to answer this? Was it paid? Even for me, it wasn't paid. So basically, a majority of us, the first events we did, we basically, to build a name, you have to go out, take some risks, and also, because the reality is that you don't have anyone who knows you. Not everyone knows you have a bouncing castle. Not everyone knows that, for example, I'm an MC. So that event of my cousin, I'll volunteer, And so for a lot of us in this space, our first events, not just events, were more or less free, in quotes, so that you can put your name out there? Because wanasema kizuri chajiuza, kibaya chajitembeza. Jack, you want to add something?
Yeah, just to add on to what he has said, because I think we really do a bit well when it comes to social media. Again, referrals. The best way to get clients is through relationships, yeah? For us, we call them relationships, yeah? Through your family, your friends, your network groups, your churches, all these other people, relationships will always give you business. Marketing, especially when it comes to social media. I've seen majority of guys who do a lot of marketing through social media, they tend to boost or even pay for adverts for their page. I'll tell you this, if you go to Jackson Mwangi Photography, for example, Jackson Mwangi Photography is like a shop. But guys are not really interested to know if you have a shop or not. Guys want to know what do you have inside your shop. So especially when you're doing marketing through social media, target your clients in terms of tell them, I'm not having a bouncing castle company, but guess what? We have this kind of a bouncing castle. Promote those specific posts that you're doing. Don't just promote your page. No one will probably be interested in seeing your page. But if you're able to tell them that, hey, I have a bouncing castle. On top of bouncing castle, I have also a trampoline. Apart from trampoline, we have also face painting and magicians and they're called clowns. Guys will come for that. Don't promote your page only, or probably never even promote your page. Promote what you're selling in that shop.
Thank you. As it passes over to Bosire, time is running, and so Bosire, as you answer this, there are specific questions to you, but I think it will allow us to take this as a final one, because these questions keep coming. Please continue posting these questions, because this is just the beginning. Biashara Forum is here to stay. And so, but just to mention, I have seen quite a lot of people here. Hillgrad, CA, we see you. I've seen Brenda, I've seen MC Himas here. I've seen Mixologist Events Kenya, Bethel Caterers. There are a lot of you, and if I haven't mentioned you, forgive me. You are a lot. There are a lot of you in our comment section. But there's something here specific to Jack and Bosire. My question this is from Zulia. My question to Mr. Bosire and Jackson: how do you deal with quack service providers in the events industry? For instance, event ushering is it's in initial stages in this country, and as a company, you train your staff and ensure they are set apart just to approach a client and hear them say he'll hire freelance services that are cheaper. So how do you deal with quacks in your different spaces? So Bosire.
Thank you. I think I'm really burning to answer the bouncing castle question.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
My kid doesn't do bouncing castles. Maybe because he's young. Because I came to realize bouncing castles also have an age limit. You can't do a bouncing castle for a kid who's younger than 2 years, because the neck is still soft. Their hands are limp. People don't know that. So for me, what I can do, I can target the parents. Because for me, that's a lost revenue, because I'm very concerned about my kid. So if you can assure safety as a service offering, because right now I think the bouncing castle market is flooded. I can predict a bouncing castle either has frozen branding. Paw Patrol, not that much, because that's what kids love. But for me as a parent, I rarely don't do bouncing castles. First, because I'm not assured of the height. There's these bouncing castles, I think they're 6 meters high. You always think, will my kid fall off? You know, those things. I study the market, know that I can offer a lower bouncing castle, and there are stewards up there who are rarely stationed there. So my kid will know that he is safe, and I am assured he is safe. Then I do some value adds. For example, I won't go on the pricing war. I say if my bouncing castle is at 10,000 shillings per day, I'll charge it at 15,000 shillings, then include some value adds within it. Ukilipa a bouncing castle, this face painting, I can give you frozen, easy things kids love. So my parent, the parent will feel my kid has value of this thing.
Okay.
So that's how I can approach it, because the market is flooded, and I think 4 days ago, I saw a bouncing castle supplier who's very minimalistic, meaning the bouncing castle doesn't have branding. It's just orange in color, white, very clean. It doesn't have a masking tape on the side. So just give exceptional services to the parent will make the purchasing decision to onboard my kid to have this bouncing castle. Yes, the kids will say, I want a frozen bouncing castle. This is the theme that you're running with. But just look at the middle ground. Have the frozen branded bouncing castles, but also offer things which me as a parent can buy into that thing. I pay my 10,000 shillings, say 20 kids, I know they are safe. They have stewards, the bouncing castle is clean. That's how I will approach it differently. Yeah.
Okay. What about the quacks? Thank you for answering that.
For the quacks, we have a system. We qualify clients. This system, we found it because you are saying quack clients, right?
He says,
quack
how do you deal
suppliers.
with quack service providers in the events
so it's
industry?
Service providers.
Yes, quack service providers.
The best way is that for expose, sometimes we outsource some services, and the best way we pre-qualify them. Yes, we are pre-qualified by other people, so we copied that model into our own structure. So we do visits to their store and see, do they have a physical location that we can trace them? Do they have a social media footprint? Do they have a website? And what is their payment terms? For example, do we sign contracts with them? So these are the things which make us know that we are not dealing with a quack. And then we assign someone to follow up with them down to when they offer their service after. So we have a 50-50 payment cycle. We lock you down for 50%, and then we tell you when you deliver that service, and then once we certify it's what we had agreed to, we immediately pay the 50%. Sometimes it brings a challenge based on the money that we have at the company. So we really push our accountant to say, please pay this person 50%. Akifika site, a deliver, we do. Because tumepewa character development, we do 100%. You know, pia kufuata pesa, it makes you show up for your gig. And this is mostly for personal service providers. You are an MC, I can't do 100%. My wedding is on Saturday. You are an MC, chapa show poa sana Friday. You are on a high, you go to spend with you come to my event while you are a bit of a, yani umechoka, you are uko level ingine hapo. But if I pay you 50%, utadu Friday kidogo alafu seme, kesho niko na another 100K. I'll show up for that event. Yeah, so that's what we do. We qualify them first. We do those checks. Because also, corporate clients also do those checks.
Okay.
I'll mention a company, for example, Safaricom. Before they onboard you, they do physical checks in your company. They visit you, health and safety, every checkbox. So we see them working for them.
So you adopted the model?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you, Jack. How do you deal with competitor quacks? And a client comes to your office and you give them my quote for the services you ask is say 300,000, and then they go silent. Then you realize they went to someone who gives very substandard service at a very, say, cheap rate. So how do you deal with such people? Is it a cause of worry to you, or you are relaxed?
To be honest, there's nothing much you can be able to do when it comes to that. Because remember, the final decision is with the client. And sometimes it's really nice when they go and get bad services so that they become your best marketers. You know, sometimes they become the best examples for others. We've had, I've really had, I think it was in April. April, we ended up redoing photo sessions for about 4 weddings. And funny enough, these clients had come to us before. We sounded a bit expensive. They got some other guys who are able to deliver the same service. And funny enough with these clients is that they'll come to Joe and tell Joe, I'm talking to Jackson, and Jackson and Lipisha 10,000. That was beyond. And good enough because Joe knows us. Anasema, me, I can match the quote. I can match whatever Jackson is giving you for 3,000. There's one thing that you can never especially match when it comes to photography, and that is the style. The way we shoot, it's very limited. It's a particular style that we do in photography that sets us apart from other service providers. To be honest, if you feel this other person can give you a cheaper cost and probably the same service, you go there. If you lose your wedding photos, the next time you come to us or you send recommendations to us, those clients, they never even negotiate. But they will actually consider you to be a very cheap service provider. So sometimes experience is the best lesson.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think so that I am not guilty of taking over this session, let me now pass this session back to my co-moderator to finish up. But thank you, and for the guys who raised questions online, thank you very much. Some of the questions are going to TWESA directly. TWESA will get back to you in due course. For now, I return it back to my co-moderator to finish.
Thank you so much, Joe. I've learned so much from just listening to our panelists here. And I guess there's a lot to do and there's a lot to learn and a lot to relearn as you continue growing your business. Because at the end of it all, what we want for everyone who's listening and those who are here is that we grow thriving event businesses in the long run. So I'm back to our papers with our last question before we enter the wrap-up session. So this question, you can also answer on the chat, is if you were to go back to university, what's the one course you wish you'd have taken that you know would help you in your business? The one course. Okay, as you add that, second part of still the same question, if you were in university, what's the one character you wish you developed better? That is useful. A character, a value. All right. So at the count of 3, ready? Okay, sure. Design and greets. Not applicable. Public speaking. Costing and costing again for part 2 in terms of character. So, well, I don't know about you, but there's still a lot more to learn. And even if you were to go back, these are just some, I guess to you, Mark, I'd ask, why design?
I think design is very broad. There's human-centered design, graphic design, but all these are meaning that design is, I capture what my client needs. I interpret it to the business environment and the objective. So for me, this is very key because everything is not cast in stone, meaning that I need to design products and services which meet my client needs. So that's one thing that if I had studied it in school. I'm catching up with these short courses, but if I had planned it from the get-go, I could be very far right now. Yeah.
There's an interesting comment here from Brenda Mlama. She says, cost nothing. YouTube is my friend. So chances are if she was to go back to campus, she would study YouTube. Because apparently YouTube teaches us everything that the school didn't teach us. Yes, back to you.
It's actually true. If I was to take, like, for my example, my entire business, I learned how to make the paper flowers on YouTube. So everything, even research nowadays, everything is, you need to learn and do your research, most likely online, if you're not able to go back to school. So as a wrap-up session, I'd just like to go around to all our three panelists. You give us what you would consider your parting shot. What would you advise another event industry player on how to grow their businesses to get to where yours are? We'll start with you, Mr. Jimton.
Thank you. One of the things I can advise those who are probably beginning or starting, or those who have just started and are ongoing, is build your brand. We are all unique. We are not the same. No, don't be somebody else. You know, you have your own DNA. You know, my finger, you know, my DNA is in my finger, whatever. And it's unique. It's not the same with anyone else. Sometimes if you are copying people, you end up not with the design that you would have ended up if you just if you used your own creativity. So I would advise those who are coming into the industry or those who are there and trying to find their space, be yourself. Be yourself, create your own space, and customers will actually come to your product. I mean, if you look at the food industry, it's very varied in terms of what people can be able to do. And I like the fact that, you know, you have some of these international companies that are doing business. You see somebody has just focused maybe on pizza only. And they have a clientele for that, you know, and they are not trying to be somebody else. And so be your own brand, have your own creativity, and don't try to really, yes, you can borrow a lead from here and there from other people, but be yourself and create your own brand. The other thing that I can be able to advise those who are in the industry and those who are starting is, I know there's always the appetite for getting loans. And if you're new in the industry, because sometimes loans have their own challenges, if you can be able to find a way of growing, like what the word I've been using, organically, is that sometimes you have some little money where you started from, and as you continue, you know, you get money and you buy more products, you buy more equipment for yourself. And as you grow, because there's a level to which you can get to where if you borrow a loan, you can easily pay back. But there's a level to which when you start and you go into loans, you get yourself into trouble because maybe you don't have the kind of activity that can generate income in every other month or every other day that then can sustain you paying a loan. Otherwise, then you find yourself getting into debts and then your business goes down. And the other thing I think I'd written here that I can advise those who are starting also is I know there's always the issue of competition in the market, and I know there's been a cry about people coming and lowering prices in the industry for a particular product, for example. And I always say that, you know, somebody entering into the industry, one of the ways you can easily, if you ask me, get clientele sometimes is, like was said earlier, you know, give lower prices. Somebody who has been in the industry, you know, you keep your prices in a certain place because your customers already know you. There's a kind of, you know, quality that you're providing. Somebody entering, you must probably enter and start from somewhere. Not necessarily lowering your price too much, but because a huge company, probably my costs may be different with somebody else who's starting because they don't have quite a bit of overheads like I do. And so if you have, because your pricing will be dependent on the activities of what you do and the kind of things that you have to take care of in a month. Somebody starting, probably you're working from home, you're cooking from home, for example, if you're a caterer. So you don't have a huge wage bill, you don't have rent, you don't have quite a bit of stuff. You can keep your rate in a certain level, then you find yourself entering into the market. And I always don't like demonizing people entering into the market and lowering prices, because that's where they start from. Because there's been hue and cry from our industry. Some people are saying, oh, some people are lowering prices. I know there's that bit of people who do all manner of stuff. But there's people who are entering into the industry and there's an entry level. One of the best things is put your price in a place where it's not too high. It will give you customers as long as you're doing a good job, and so on and so forth. So thank you for the opportunity.
I think I have 3 points to that, to my parting shot. Number one, do not mind those who are ahead of you, but learn. Sometimes it's very discouraging when you see, there's this probably MC, photographer, caterer, who keeps on posting, probably every day, how busy they are. There's a high likelihood you might end up feeling demotivated. Are you doing something wrong or not? But I'll give you an example. If you go to Mombasa, majority of these rocks, which eventually form a cave, it was from that point when, the waters, the waves, was in Agonga, those stones. And eventually these stones ended up breaking and they ended up forming those waves. The water force might be, I don't go to because it's just a very simple wave around the shore. But over time, it ends up doing something to the rock. Keep your consistency. You might be having one job within, probably in the next 2 months or 3 months. But let this one event that you get be the best event that you'll ever do. Number two, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. We all probably started with free events. Like kuna wenye they charge low, but then how do you compete with someone who is shooting your wedding for free? How do you compete with that? To be honest, I did about 7 weddings for free. And we used to give the best product as if the client had paid us so much amount of money to be able to give them that service. It is not how you start. Plan how you finish. Last but not least, I'll quote from the Bible. The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. So it's, unlike to what he has said, there's nothing wrong in coping, because eventually, whatever you see happening around, it was borrowed from somewhere. All I can tell you is, as you're trying to do what someone else is doing, use that as an inspiration to get something unique from yourself. Do not put Jackson down because you want to make sure that you do the same photo books he does, the same cameras he uses, the same mounts he gives his clients. You decide you'll do something extra beyond what I'm doing. You can use my products as an inspiration, but don't copy what I have. Use it as an inspiration for you to give something better in the market, and the market will always have a place for you. Thank you so much.
For me, I have 3 points also, and this is what I'm learning, and also I've seen it's something you can focus on. The first one is attempt to go borderless. Right now, it's common knowledge the economy is not doing that well. The purchasing power has become very tough for most people. And our industry is it's a luxury industry. If I'm having a birthday party for my two-year-old kid and I have 50,000, I'll channel that 50,000 to either to pay my hospital bill or sort out things which are of basic need. And I'll just do a very chilled out birthday party for my kid. That's what the consumers are grappling with. What you can do is that you can attempt to go borderless. Meaning, you can try to get clients who fly in from Kenya and try to do, it's a bit harder in the social event circle, but you can try this in the corporate side. Do a good LinkedIn page, join also associations. Also, TWESA can link up with UK. UK has a very vibrant association platform. You can exchange ideas, and through exchanging those knowledge networks, they can refer you to businesses which you can channel through the TWESA members. That can be an option, because borderless is the key. Right now, things are tight. We all know that. I know that. So that can be a strategy for a business which is existing or you can starting. My second point is about social capital. And I'll use an example of one of the clients. He's always happy, and when the political landscape changed, he texted me 3 initials, GIP. GIP means government in power. Sometimes you can use your social capital to gain business, because we exist just for business. We are not friendship. Friendship is there, but we are there to make money and to pay workers or employees. So study the government in power. Try to see if you can align with what they need, their messaging that they are consistently pushing out, and study them and try to leverage on this social capital. Right now, I'll say it's an open secret. Right now, all the deco seats are being channeled to one company. What if you can pata hiyo keki, hata kidogo uweze kuipata, but also be aware that you have to have deep pockets, not paying these people, but being ready to be paid after 20 days or even 365 days. These things are there. So be wary of that. My third point is about try to align yourself with special interest group tenders. I think special interest groups are people, women, youth, and PWDs. If you can channel your business to bid or even pre-qualify with corporates who have that angle, you'll get money. You'll be in business. Right now, KCB is floating expression of interest for special interest groups, and they are very open about it. They'll say, special interest groups, please apply. So if your business is 60% women owned, youth-based, and PWDs, I'll end with a video that we recently had a partners conference. So this big company played a video for us, for a photographer who was 21 years old. He just saw this call for pre-qualification. He applied, he had all the papers, and he said he was given the job. And he was shocked because the amount of money that he was making was humongous, and the project was huge. And this client, because they are focusing on a youth-owned business, they told us, we are going to hibernate you. We're going to link you up with a big brother, for example, Jacob. He's going to teach you the skills to execute this job. Don't worry about it. It's mentoring. So special interest groups, please don't feel, hey, I'm a PWD, I can't access business. Apply for these things. Tenders work, and also expression of interest work, because this one is very big in the corporate sector. Assured revenues. Social events, they have revenues, but sometimes it's not assured because it's coming from a personal account. But assured revenues is the way to go. If you can lock it, you'll be good. Thank you.
I hope you've learned something on how, and you've picked something or a tip or two on how to grow your business and ensure that you thrive in the space in a couple of years to come. Thank you so much for joining and listening in. We'll be seeing, keep up, watch out on our social media spaces. If you've not joined the TWESA Nation WhatsApp group, please join. We'll be sending out the full clip on those platforms, and also details on our next convening and our next webinars. and also what TWESA Nation will be offering to all event suppliers in the coming few weeks. Thank you so much. Kwaheri.